Hello and welcome to Breakfast All Day. We've got a very special guest star here for this one segment. His name is Ben Mankiewicz. He's related to the guy we're about to talk about. I'm Christy, and Alonzo and Matt are here as always. Our old friend Ben is here. We miss you, Ben. Good to see you.
I miss you guys too. It's great to see you, and I see that. Well, you've halved on the outside, and Matt's got the outside. I got the outside, and Alonzo appears has not left the apartment since March.
Certainly not for the barbershop. No.
No. Anyway, I love your latest album, Alonzo. I think you guys. Billy F. Gibbons and you guys you've managed to sort of maintain your sound into a new century, and keep it up, my friend.
Oh, that means a lot coming from you.
Ben, do you want to tell us about Mank?
I do. But
the movie, not the guy.
Occasionally, I'm going to want you guys to kibitz among yourselves, since we live so close to the Santa Monica airport. I mean, an airport somewhere in Southern California. It might be Santa Monica, it might be Van Nuys. You can't possibly know where I live. Okay, so Mank is the story of a degenerate 1930s Hollywood screenwriter. This guy can't keep a job. He never passes up a drink. He gambles his fortune away. That's actually true. But also he is kind of magical. He's brilliant, loved by other writers, fun to be with, not a mean drunk, pretty great to his wife, except for losing all their money, gambling again and again and again. And it's Herman Mankiewicz. He happens to be my grandfather. I never knew him. And this story David Fincher tells in Mank is the story not of who wrote Citizen Kane, although it's Herman, but the story of this gifted writer fighting his demons, and the 90-day process that he took writing Citizen Kane, told in the framework of looking back at his career from his zenith in the early 30s and then watching its descent throughout the decade.
And how much about him did you know prior to watching this movie, and how much do they get right?
Well, I don't really know what they got right. What David Fincher got comports with what I know about my grandfather, what my father said about him. There's really not many bad things written about him. I mean, the demons are really it. He gambled. It's always seen as kind of fun. He did not care about money. That was a big part of the gambling. He bet 12 grand, and if he lost 12, it's 12 grand in 1934. That's like $1 billion now, right? And he'd bet it, and if he lost it, oh well. And if he won it, life wouldn't really change. He would just sort of lend people money more often. He lent people money. He then borrowed money. It was sort of always money coming in and out. So, and the drinking was obviously a problem. But again, he wasn't cruel to people when he drank, except for people who you sort of, wanted someone to be cruel to. So I think they got the essence of my grandfather right, and then they certainly changed some details. But afterwards, I felt like, wow, that my dad would have loved this movie. Loved it.
Well, yeah,
see his father this way.
I was kind of surprised at how much politics there are in this story. Like, I didn't really know that was so much part of the DNA of the creation of Citizen Kane. And obviously, your father did not follow him in the showbiz footsteps, was very much a political player. And so, does that ring true? Was this a story that you knew that aspect, the idea of his anger at the studios and at Hearst for going so hard against Upton Sinclair was the motivating factor?
Well, that part I think is not true, other than Upton Sinclair did run for governor in 1934 and lose, and he was a true progressive. Herman's politics were complicated. I mean, he was a staunch anti-communist, but a stauncher anti-fascist, and
the 30s.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And a real sort of believer in social justice. I mean, you know what side he'd be on now. But I think what Fincher did, I'm going to ask you guys to chat for a moment. I think as I mute myself for one sec, that sounds like a low and loud one.
Okay. Well,
That happens to me too. I'm used to it, right?
We should talk about, like, you know, obviously the mechanics of this movie is that I think there's a lot of inspiration being drawn from Citizen Kane, and as far as like how this movie looks. I mean, I don't think not excessively, but every so often you get like a low angle shot or somebody talking to an audience and you see the spotlights aimed right at the camera. Like there are things here and there where it's like, I see what we're doing here.
The shadows and like the extreme light coming in from like one source, I think.
Right.
Well, and especially when we see Mank drop the one bottle, right? It's like, oh, hey, where did we see that shot before? Like there's a few things of that. And coupled with the bouncing back and forth from the story we're at, and then
the chronology,
right. Like, and now granted, there are worse movies. Like any movie would be the worst movie to ape than Citizen Kane. But it does become a little much sometimes, though, because I don't think it didn't feel as urgent as Citizen Kane does. But
agreed.
I mean, I don't think so either, and I don't think you could have had that urgency. I mean, this is, while it's about a guy's sort of, fall from that his demons kept him from achieving what he could have. I mean, we're talking about one guy who arguably was one of the five most, and William Randolph Hearst, one of the four, and certainly Charles Foster Kane, one of the 4 or 5 most powerful people in the country, could well have been president, if not for his demons. And then his sort of crushing descent into some degree of madness, whereas Herman was just a really talented writer who hated himself.
As we all do.
Yeah, although Herman took it to new heights. But you were asking me about the politics, so let me get into that just a bit, because while the Upton Sinclair storyline in Mank, I mean, I don't know where Herman stood on that or how important that was in his life, but politics was the most important thing discussed at the Mankiewicz home, which is why my father's entry into politics would have been incredibly well received by his dad. It didn't really happen until after my grandfather died. Herman was ashamed to make money, which you see a bit in the movie, to make his money in Hollywood. Theater critic, that would have been one thing. Write plays, which he wanted to do, was something else. Being a journalist, he was in the Berlin bureau of the Chicago, I think it was the Daily News, a paper that no longer exists. But so he was a journalist, and that's, and sort of, writing novels would have counted. But this silly new art form that paid them so much money was shameful. And Herman sort of carried that shame and imagined his father, Franz Mankiewicz, would have disapproved of it. And he did, except he loved, the Joe Mankiewicz yacht that came with it. So, they shared that. So, but at the dinner table, when, Harpo Marx was over and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Wells, whoever was over to eat, more so those first 2 guys, the conversation was always politics, or sports.
So Ben, as you're watching this, Ben, can you immerse yourself in it and assess it as a film, or is there just too much of your own DNA literally in it for you to be that removed?
I mean, I think I can, but I don't know. Maybe I can. I mean, there's so much of my DNA in there. I mean, the movie's called Mank.
Does anybody ever call you Mank? I've never called you Mank in like the dozen years I've known you. Does anybody ever actually call you that?
It's not, if I may be sexist, I don't think there are a lot of women who do it, but it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that a woman should say to me, which is absurd. And of course that's wrong, but I guess that's just because of the history, is that Mank. There's a lot of that that's happened. More so to my brother and Tom Mankiewicz, and obviously Herman. I mean, almost every male member of the family, John Mankiewicz, my cousin, my daughter's godfather, they've all been called Mank. And the word Mank is said on screen, like 89 times. I don't even think that's an exaggeration.
Is the whole WIC and then out of nowhere a Z like a family joke or something they made up for the movie?
No. It's not quite as I remember my mom, both parents. I still do it on the phone. What's your name? You're like, Mankiewicz. What's that? Mackenzie. M is in Mary, A is in Apple, N is in Nancy, KIE, WI, C like Charlie, Z like zebra. And that they do a variation of that.
I feel your pain on that.
Totally,
I do too. I don't say Atchity without automatically spelling it.
Yeah, that's right.
To anyone on the phone. Yeah.
Here's what doesn't work, what I started to do 25 years ago, and of course still do. MANKWI, and then CZ, like Czar.
No.
Yeah.
CZ, like Catherine Zeta-Jones.
That's right.
We should talk about how amazing Gary Oldman is in this, because he finds this fine line between, being rumpled and boozy and messy, and yet like the smartest guy in the room at all times. And he's adorable and charming, but there's so much of him and his personality, and Oldman finds that balance really beautifully. And Amanda Seyfried is amazing in this.
She's great in this.
She looks the part, first of all. She wears the clothes perfectly, but it's been really cool to see her lead up to this point in her career. Like First Reformed is so great. It'd be so easy to dismiss her as like being one of the plastics in Mean Girls, the
Mamma Mia lady.
Right. And there's so much more to her, and she gets to be is brassy and vulnerable and everything in between, and their moments together are so great. The whole cast is great.
My thing with Oldman in this movie, and I think it has more to do with the way that it's written than his performance, but he is such a quip machine. And I know that writers tend to be like fast and clever, but because he's the only one in the movie, even though he is surrounded by other sort of legendary wits, it to me feels like he's visiting from All About Eve, to borrow from his brother's movie. And so like I found it hard to get to the human core of him, because he was always there with the right thing to say at every moment, or the correct thing to say at every moment, even if it was the inappropriate thing to say in the moment. So, but yeah, he definitely is capturing this guy who is complicated and who is a charmer and can get the things that he wants and knows how to work whatever room he's in. But I don't know. I think that, and the script is credited to Fincher's late father, Jack. I don't know. I found it a little too much of a literary creation than a person.
I thought it was interesting that the only one who seems to be at that level of quip with him is Marion Davies. And, when like their first, like when she's on the stake and he makes a line about, he makes some quip about that, and she's giving it right back to him for the most part. And, the history that comes into this was fascinating, right? Like the whole, seeing how the studio reacted to Upton Sinclair, seeing how Louis B. Mayer was asking people, asking his employees to take a pay cut and then didn't pay back the back wages. And, although I will say it took me out of the movie a little bit to see Bill Nye playing Upton Sinclair. I was like, what? Wait a minute. That was just, I thought that was a really weird choice. And not that Bill Nye shouldn't be getting roles, but it was just a weird choice. I did like a lot of the history. I am curious, Ben, when they brought up Herman Mankiewicz taking that whole town from Germany, and bringing to the States, was that something like, was that a family story you were aware of?
Yeah, so I want to answer this carefully, because I don't think it was that many people, but it's true. So, and he didn't, and he didn't talk about it. I mean, he what I thought was great was the ability to show someone who is a drunk gambler who hates himself, but who everybody still wanted to be around, right? And I think that's a sort of a tough thing to find. And that, again, is what I always understood about my grandfather. And always thought, that can't be true. At some point, he must have been a mean drunk. Did he yell at Sarah? Poor Sarah, accurately described.
Poor Sarah.
Poor Sarah is what everybody
Did you know her or no?
Oh, yeah. She lived until I was 18. Yeah, so I knew her pretty well. She'd come to visit in D.C. I went out to California a couple times to see her Goma. So Herman would have been Gopa. My dad thought he was a good dad. He wasn't when he was around, he was great. He wasn't around. Like there was a lot of staying out late and drinking, carousing. No women ever, and that's that wonderful line that that Tuppence Middleton has as my grandmother, where she says, I've put up with your endless gambling and your
platonic affairs,
suicidal drinking, and your platonic affairs. Yeah. And that was what, to what Matt said, that was true with Marion Davies. I mean, they had a very close relationship, and it very much bothered him that character was seen, that the Susan Alexander character in Citizen Kane was seen so much as Marion Davies. real quick, the character, the Hearst character was really taken from 3 industrials, of which Hearst was the biggest. But one of those guys built an opera house for his girlfriend in Chicago, right? And so clearly, to me anyway, the idea was, well, we'll make that, and everyone will know that that's. But then it just became Hearst, and so everyone, and Davies was far more famous. So he definitely regretted that it sort of tarnished Marion Davies, who everybody thought was smart and funny, and could have been, Carol Lombard or Jean Harlow, if Hearst hadn't been so determined to make her into a serious actress.
Right.
Nerds.
Yeah. There are so many cool Easter eggs, many of which I'm sure I missed. I mean, so much of this movie is so inside baseball. I think if you love movies, you can connect with it, but you've got to really, really know all of this stuff to get a lot of the Easter eggs. One cool thing that I noticed, and I'm sure, Ben, you probably saw way more than any of us did, was that they're walking into what is now the Sony lot, what was then the MGM lot. Thalberg is walking in, and then eventually he's in the building that now bears his name, the Thalberg building on the Sony lot.
Because that's where his offices were. That's why they named it.
Yeah. So there's cool things that I'm sure you saw.
Did you
many
guys,
more.
in that one shot where he's walking in, did you catch the stairwell?
Yes.
The right that we go up to that screening room, right?
That's right.
I totally had I know that stairwell moment. Right. Yes, for sure.
It's on Washington near Motor. The Motor opening. So,
yeah,
Fincher loves all that stuff, So
I would have been happier. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying Fincher loves all that stuff. His dad loved it. His dad really had a romance with classic Hollywood. So yeah, of course, he put as many as those things in as possible and as made sense.
I love the little cigarette burns in the film.
That was cool.
But I think I would have liked that more if he hadn't made such a big deal about it in Fight Club when he did it.
True. I was going to say,
like, man, you told this joke before.
Here it makes sense.
I know.
It makes sense. You have to do it here.
Although I think here's the thing, I think if you're going to do that kind of thing, you have to go full Grindhouse and like put some scratches on occasionally, or maybe like have a weird a cut, that does kind of a boop or something. If you're just going to do the cigarette burns, it's sort of like yeah. I did think, oh yeah, the Fight Club. There was that whole reference.
There is
to
definitely
it.
some of that though.
I get where he's going.
There's definitely some of that in the car scenes, right? Some of those car scenes definitely have like the moving background behind them.
Oh yeah.
Let me just share a couple things that Fincher told me that I did a piece on the movie and Fincher for CBS Sunday Morning, but a couple things that we didn't get in. One was that Fincher said the only person who really takes a hit in this movie who didn't deserve it was John Houseman, who was played an integral part in getting Citizen Kane made and shepherding my grandfather and almost certainly suggesting things to him. I mean, he was there sort of all the time, but he didn't want this to be a story about a collaboration between a screenwriter and a producer who kept him sober. So John Houseman was kind of a little clownish, right, in the movie, and Houseman was not that kind of guy at all. And the other thing was the thing we couldn't use because we got it from an interview with Amanda Seyfried on Zoom, and it just didn't sound right. But one of the things she said, Fincher has this reputation for doing so many takes, and I was sort of not told not to ask questions about that, be like, that's like Fincher doesn't want to hear that. So I didn't ask him, but then they started bringing it up, Lily Collins and Amanda Seyfried, and who was the guy who played, I'm blanking out just for a brief moment. Tom.
Who played who?
Who played Orson.
Oh, it's not Charles Dance.
Oh.
Hang on.
No, Charles Dance was...
he's Hearst.
Hearst.
Anyway.
Hold on.
So,
Tom Burke.
Right. So... But the actors I was talking to on this Zoom call, Lily Collins, Amanda Seyfried, and Tom Burke, they talked about the takes, and there was like, we loved it. It means he's into it, and it made us better. But Amanda Seyfried said, man, after working with Fincher, it let me know how lazy I have been in every other movie, which I thought was like a great, great, great compliment for a director. And she really found it. She was like, oh man, yeah. I don't know. It was like it just occurred to her. She's like, oh, I just suddenly feel like I've been lazy my entire career. I think she's been lovely in some movies, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot more performances on that level. I also thought Lily Collins was great as well.
Totally, because it could have been a very thankless part, and she brings a lot of sweetness and also a spine to it. I was totally in awe of all the details and the clothes, and it's shot. Eric Messerschmidt shot it. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. It left me a little cold emotionally. I will say that. I'm so enthralled by the trappings of it and the meticulous, obsessive period detail. And the performances are all great. They really are. Oldman will get an Oscar nomination, and he should. I never felt like an emotional heart to this. It felt like a lot of like really high-end cosplay.
It's a little clinical. It's a little, documentary-ish almost, which is fine. And it's informative, assuming things are true or not. You have to parse that for yourself, obviously. But yeah, no, I agree. At the end of it, it is sort of like it's missing a certain, and even other Fincher movies have had that. It's not like he's so constantly a clinical filmmaker. I mean, like you can look at something like Zodiac, and as much as he is about mapping that out, at the same time, you do get those characters, and it does provide a sort of emotional catharsis that I don't think you really get here. Yeah, I agree.
It's the greatest movie ever made. I don't know which one. I think that I guess it was Alonzo. I think it was a good point. I haven't really thought about it, but or maybe it was Matt. It was one of the guys. And Christy.
Certainly not Christy.
Christy, not capable of making that comment. No, about that. That maybe there could be that it was so quippy and so clever that you didn't that maybe some more honest conversations, which there were some, could have given you a little bit more sense of Herman was, rather than just a joke machine. Every woman I've been with in my life has said to me at one point, not everything is a joke.
And those women are wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it proves it. The thing of it is, and why I really like that he made it, is this story of a guy who was at the top of his game, the most highest paid writer, it's true, in Hollywood. He brought all these other guys out, sent that great telegram to Ben Hecht. The movie suggests he sent it to more people. Get out here as soon as you can. There's millions to be made. Everybody else is an idiot. Don't let this get around. That was the great finish. And who then, because he hated himself and he hated the profession, and he had an addictive personality, drank too much and gambled too much, and then had this moment where he realizes, I've written something that matters, right? Finally, and he fought to have his name put on it after initially taking $10,000 to keep his name off it, because he was like, no, I wrote this, and this is something that matters to me. But there was no second act. It was, he fought for this thing that mattered. It was great, and then went back to falling apart.
Right.
And if you were crafting it, if the story weren't true, you would have made this great comeback, and then maybe descended again. But there would have been some moment after Kane where everything was good for some period of time.
But Ben, you have to remember that there are no second acts in American life.
And
really not true anymore, but yes.
We should do numbers. Ben, do you want to give it a number?
Yeah, 14. I thought it was great. I was heartened to read other reviews and other critics. I obviously, I have a small speaking part in it. My voice is in it. I'm the Oscar announcer.
It's ruined the movie for me.
It's about my grandfather, but I thought it was great. I mean, if I were still doing this regularly, I'd give it a 9. I mean, I love Hollywood stories, and I'm partial to them anyway. And I think this is a really good.
Okay. Alonzo?
I'm a 7.5. I think that, on a technical level, it's great. And I love the performances. I did kind of wish there was a little more of an emotional landing for this.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same feeling as Alonzo. It's very, very good. It doesn't quite hit the emotions. And you mentioned the telegram. It really bothers me that the guy who's one of the best writers to have ever walked the face of the earth is just sending the same telegram over and over.
I don't think he sent it over and over. He just sent it to Ben Hecht.
It's an economy of style.
Right, but then there's the line that's like, oh, he sends that same one to everyone.
No, I know. I think the movie sort of drew that up. But by the way, I was reading yesterday. I found Ben Hecht's letter to my grandmother after Herman died, and oh my God, these guys could write. And it's beautiful. And Ben Hecht was like, look, this guy was the best. This is, and and I still, it's been a week and I'm over his death because I'm just going to keep talking to him for the rest of my life. It was beautiful.
Christy?
So I'm saying 8. So our number is an 8.
All right.
So it's in theaters now and it's on Netflix in a couple of weeks, right?
Correct. That is the deal with that one. And I always want to throw this out to the universe because I'm still trying to make it happen, especially at this time of year. My favorite, one of my favorite Herman Mankiewicz screenplays is for a film called Christmas Holiday, which is a noir film with, of all people, Deanna Durbin and Gene Kelly in it. And because of weird legal copyright stuff, you cannot get it in the United States on any form of home video, but it needs to be out there. It's super good. So I hope one of these days the clouds clear. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching.
We have it on TCM over Christmas, and it is one of the best movies my grandpa wrote after Citizen Kane.
That is exciting. Okay, because TCM changed their website. I've been having to get my December news in dribs and drabs, but that's awesome. I'm very excited to hear that. So yes, y'all watch Christmas Holiday when it comes on. Thank you, Ben, for being here. It's always lovely to see you. And thank you guys for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us at Be Fast All Day on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And hey, go visit our Patreon page. Right now, we're recapping The Mandalorian. We're wrapping up Stars' Seduced. And we are still taking votes for the next couple of days on which Sean Connery movie we're going to review this month. So come back around for that. Patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.